go for it.
There we
There.
go.
There it is. Okay.
All right, that's good. Well, welcome to the August 25th, 2020 Warcog meeting. And if we could call this meeting to order and ask that Lynn please call the roll for us.
Sure. Chief Anderson,
Here.
Chief Staley,
Here.
Chief Birkbeck,
Here.
Chief Marcelli,
Here.
Chief Bishop,
Here.
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Mayor Handwerk,
Here.
Mayor Brenneman,
Here.
Mr. Cavan, Mr. Montgomery,
Here.
Hey, so ask him I'm here.
Yeah.
Mr. Montgomery,
Here.
Dennis Miller,
Here.
Mr. Carrozza, he's not here with us any longer, is he? Is he off the list?
No, there will be a new council representative, and I don't think our council president has made that appointment yet.
Okay, and Mr. Wheeler?
He is here and he's having trouble with his sound in
He's
the
muted,
office.
but I see his little name up there. Okay.
He can hear you, but he can't be heard.
All right. Well, it sounds like we have a quorum, maybe down a member or two, but definitely we can move forward with business. So good to see everybody again, and hopefully things are good in our other communities out there that are joined into the Warcog together. You all should have received the minutes from our June 23rd meeting, and are there any additions, corrections, or deletions, or would someone like to move their approval?
Move to approve.
Okay, Mayor Handwerk, thank you. And is there a second out there?
I'll second.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Mayor Miller. Okay, all in favor of approval of the minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, they are approved then. With that, we'll turn to Andre. Are you amongst us? Seeing him. All right. Well, we will. We can either go with what is presented. Did you all receive a copy of the financial report?
Hey, Bob, I just got off the phone with Andre. He just lost track of time. He'll be on here shortly.
Okay. Well, then, if it's all right with the group, we'll hold until he joins us, and then he can explain any questions or concerns. So we'll move on then. And look at the operations report. We got two in the packet, one for July and one for August. Rhodey, would you like to explain these or give any introduction to either set of these activity summaries?
Absolutely, Mayor. Thank you. Each month I meet with Joel Montgomery, who is our designated liaison between the executive committee and myself. And I review all of our activities for the month that are pertinent and impactful for our organization. So what you have before you are the activity summaries for July and for August, both of them broken down into their highlighted subcategories of interest. Rather than read through these laboriously like we did last month, because I did see a couple of our fire chiefs nodding off, I simply tried to get these out ahead of time for you so that you could read through them. And if you had any questions about the operations or activities within our center during this last 2-month span, I'd be glad to field those at this time.
Any questions of the group? Our activities.
Hey, Rhodey, could you, I'm interested in that 911 tool that allows the live videos. What's the cost of that?
Okay, Councilman Miller, we will be discussing that later under miscellaneous other, but to answer your question, very briefly, the cost is based on the concurrent number of users that are anticipated to be on the system. So our center would fall underneath the small user group, which is 3 to 4 licenses being used concurrently. There is a one-time fee of $2,500 for setup, and then an annual fee of less than $7,000 for the service, which breaks down, fairly economically when we divide it by our 6 agencies that would see the value or benefit in its use.
Is that 7,000 an annual fee then?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay.
And that's a tool that I am rolling out to our operations board this week, so they can have kind of the first look at how it works and what value they may derive from it. And then once we have that rollout completed, I'll be training our dispatchers individually in a brief training scenario, accompanied with a policy for its use. And then we're going to start a 30-day trial period with the company, so we can see just exactly how well it functions as far as giving us greater information gathering and providing more value to our first responders prior to arrival. But we can talk in more depth later if that's okay with you.
That's fine. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good question, though. We'll get into that near the end here. Any other questions? I did have one, Rhodey, if I could. I'm pleased about the facility maintenance. It sounds like you've had some conversations with folks at the hospital, and they're going to do some upgrades for us, or at least plan it into the budget for next year.
Given our COVID restrictions of being stuck in this building, it's given us time to do some things internally. Like cleaning the carpets, repainting some of the walls, touching up the floors, different things like that. And with that, I turned my focus to the outside of the building. And we've done some things that we thought needed to be done, like our front door was just never painted. It was a primer door that was put in place and then has rusted since then. So we sanded it all down, repainted it, put new graphics on it for easier identification. And then I looked at the rest of our building, and the portion of the building that we inhabit is covered with unused electrical boxes, old K-channel wiring. We have a telephone pole next to the entrance that had cables that were just free hanging that would brush people as they walked in the door. And so I put together a proposal for Brian White, who's in charge of facilities at Worcester Community Hospital, and said, this is what I would like done. I'd like these things removed. Some of this stuff updated, and is this a possibility to consider? So Brian had 3 different contractors come out to our location and look at it. He said that this is something that they had been wanting to do as well, but had not really moved forward with it because they didn't know the future of this particular building and how it would fit into the campus plan. But it looks like it'll be around for quite some time. So they moved forward with the estimates. The estimates came back with the best case scenario being around $18,000 for the exterior improvements, which included removing all the old unused equipment, updating the facade of the facility, and removing equipment from the roof that is no longer utilized either, so that it's not only more aesthetically appealing, but functional as well. Unfortunately, that amount is not left in the capital improvements for facilities for 2020. So Brian asked if we could look at scheduling that for 2021 to do that project. So that's where we stand right now.
Okay, great. Well, I'm glad to hear that that's in contention. That's a good thing for us and for the hospital itself too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since the sum of rent that we pay is $1 a year.
Yeah. We definitely have a very good rental contract, that's for sure. Pretty good landlord too, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Well, anything final considering the activities reports? All right. Well, thanks, Rhodey, for putting those together. Yeah, that was real handy to have those come out early with the packet, and so we could look through them.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. All right. Well, then we are going to your part-time policy, I guess. You want to take that and run?
Yes, sir. We've been fortunate that within the last year, we've surpassed the point where I've just been reactive to the needs of the organization, trying to answer things as they come up and face challenges as they present. And we've actually kind of moved into more of a sustaining portion where now we're working at fortifying the foundations of our organization and building out some of our our operations and policies and expectations. And one of the areas that I saw was lacking was in our part-time policy. We didn't have anything that defined compensation or scheduling or what we expected as far as participation within the organization from our part-time employees, and finally termination as well, how we severed the relationship, whether it was voluntarily or not. So I put together a policy that was holistic and comprehensive to answer those needs. And I bring it to you today because it does include a compensation portion that I need to have your acknowledgement of and approval for. So if you have an opportunity to have printed off or downloaded that policy, one of the things that you'll see is under compensation, it is tiered now. So previously, any part-time employee who started with the Warcog was paid the entry rate for a full-time employee based on the CBA, even though our part-time employees are not covered by the CBA. In compensating a trainee at that rate, we ask them to train approximately 440 hours before they are fully trained and self-sufficient to operate a board independently. We incur a cost for their compensation, our roll-up, costs of outside training programs and certifications of about $9,000 to get a part-time trainee to the point where they are independent. With the package that I've laid out, what I've done is I've reduced the initial wage that they're being compensated from the CBA entry-level wage for our full-timers of $17.50 an hour down to $14 an hour during their training period. This change alone will save us right around $1,500 in the overall cost of training an individual over those hours. Once they attain the ability to work independently, we raise their rate to $17 an hour. One of the reasons that it is slightly less than a full-time employee is because of their perception. You know, we have full-timers in that first step of 1 to 2 years who say, a part-time employee starts their first day knowing nothing and makes the same that I do. So I acknowledge that and wanted to accommodate for that as well. So once their part-timers are fully trained, they'll make $17 an hour. Oftentimes the shifts that we need covered are the prime times that our full-time people want off, which happen to be weekends and holidays. So if we have a part-timer who's willing to fill a shift on a weekend or a holiday, there is a additional compensation of $3 an hour. So $20 an hour for that period. And then concurrent with how we have been doing things, there is a 25-cent shift differential. So it's my hope that by restructuring our part-time compensation, that we can have clearly defined expectations for those who are entering our organization. The pay is fair for the work that they're doing, and that there is a bonus for working the hours that our full-timers would like to have off. That's the majority of the compensation portion. Other areas that are of note is that it takes us roughly 2 years with a part-timer working 4 shifts a month to recoup our labor equity for the investment that we put into them. So written into the policy is the verbal expectation that we want them to commit to at least 2 years of service when we hire them and train them. In speaking with our law department and HR, I've indicated that I in no way intend to follow up legally if they don't meet that expectation by garnishing wages or anything like that. It's just simply we want the expectation to be known up front that when we take you on and we train you and we make this investment in you, this is what we expect back. Other things that are of note then are the termination of employment, simply that our part-timers are an at-will employee and that this policy supersedes our employee handbook as far as discipline and separation of employment. So with that, do you have any other questions about this policy or perhaps a section that I did not touch on that I can answer?
Any questions of the group?
I might have missed it. This is Matt over in Orville. I might have missed when they're done with training, what is their hourly rate compared to full-time? Is it the same?
No, sir.
Okay.
During training, they're at $14 an hour. When they are have completed training and can operate independently, they go to $17 an hour.
Okay.
Our entry level full-time starts at $17.50 for the first 2 years of service.
Okay.
I will just let everybody know that we do have 3 people watching right now on YouTube. There have been no comments from the audience.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Let's move to approve.
All right, there's a motion to approve the part-time employee personnel policy.
Who made the motion, please?
It was Joel, I believe.
Okay.
Montgomery. Is
I
there?
second that. Handwork.
Okay, Dave Handwork seconds. Any discussion or concerns? So just to be clear, so a part-timer is expected to work a minimum of 4 shifts per month then. Is that correct, Rhodey?
Correct, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. And if they have a scheduling difficulty, family emergency, something that they cannot, that is able to be waived by the director based on a case-by-case basis. I guess another point that's important to the discussion, just to make sure that it's transparent and everybody understands, is that this pay rate structure does not affect any current part-time employees. So they would be in effect grandfathered in at their current rates.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. Any final questions before we vote? All right, seeing none, I don't think we need a roll call vote on this. I think just a verbal vote, it works. Any objection to that, Law Director, sir?
None.
Affirmative?
Yes, that's fine.
All right. All those in favor of the motion to accept the personnel policy for part-time employees that is presented to us, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that policy manual or policy is adopted. So Rhodey, you can move forward with that suggestion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, board. I appreciate it.
Right. Next on the operations report is negotiations. Rhodey, you want to tell us what the need is on that?
Sure. Our last executive board meeting, which was also over Zoom, I expressed that our contract with the employees does expire in 2020 and that we would need to renegotiate a new contract this fall. I have already begun information gathering for comparables and the tools that we're going to need to start the process with our staff. However, I did intimate in the last meeting that one thing that I would really appreciate is if we have a face of each of our stakeholder agencies at the table, because I want our staff to know that they are valued and that they're seen as important individuals to the stakeholder agencies that we serve. So I asked respectfully for a volunteer from each of our stakeholder cities to be appointed to assist with negotiations. As of this time, Mayor Handwork has given Chief Birkbeck the nod, whether he knew that or not. So I have Chief Birkbeck, but I still need a representative from Orville, or I'm sorry, from Worcester and from Ashland, please.
Okay. Mayor Miller, do you have someone you'd like to nominate to be a part of this negotiating team?
I do not. I've not had a conversation with anyone about it, so
Okay.
I better not give you a name right now.
Okay, that works. If you could get that to Rhodey sometime between now and in our next meeting, then it'll keep things moving forward. From my side, Joel Montgomery has been in that position for us citywide, so I would like him to fill that for our position with the Warcog then.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
all right. All right. Anything else then, Rhodey, under the operations report?
Not under operations. Thank you, sir.
Okay. We will move forward then with personnel update. How are we holding together with people?
Well, I guess we'll jump to B first.
Okay.
Under resignations, we did receive 2 resignations last month. One from Callie Kaltreiter, who was a part-time employee. Part of the impetus for creating expectations for our part-time policy. Callie did very well during our training process, and we got her through and working independently. Unfortunately, before we could realize much labor back out of her, she was offered a full-time position with Richland County Corrections. So she latched onto that and is moving in a new trajectory for her career. So we're happy for her to move on, and sad for us that we lost her. You'll also see that Cody Post has requested his resignation from the Warcog. Cody has found a balance within his life that he has desired for a long time, and feels that the transition here at the COG has successfully been made, and we have not utilized him with the scope that was anticipated. So we mutually agreed that this would be a step in the right direction for him. And though we will miss his inclusion within the Warcog, we hope that he continues to find success in his new pathway. That said, we speak regularly, with the conversation and advice going both directions. So we will always be an asset to each other, so he's not lost in that respect.
All right. Cody's a good man for us, so we appreciate all his help and advice through the years. So.
Absolutely. Part-time applications, we had 2 that were currently in process. One has not followed up to further the process along for consideration. The second, we have been through the interview. So we've completed the aptitude testing, the background investigation, the interview with myself and one of our supervisors. Given the experience that we've recently had with Ms. Kaltreiter, I wanted to ensure that there was a full understanding of what the job entailed before we continued our conversation with this candidate. So we had her come in for a job shadow period, which took place yesterday for 4 hours. And we had one of our very talented dispatchers, Caitlin Yost, mentor her during that time. And so she got a little better understanding of what would be expected of her as a dispatcher. And I told her that I would follow up towards the end of this week and kind of see, what her reaction was to the work that's being performed, if she feels that that is something that she desires, and we would talk further at that point.
That's a really good idea.
That's great. Good deal. Well, so that is one in process then. And how are we holding together as far as full-time and part-time folks? Are we still at what, 13 full-time?
So we have a total of 13 staff plus the director for our full-time Warcog staff. And we currently have 2 part-time personnel. One who has been given a conditional offer for a full-time position. So her inclusion in the part-time staff is tentative based on whether or not that comes through.
Okay. Is that still meeting your needs as far as staffing goes? Or are we thin on part-time, or how are you feeling about the 13 full-time?
Well, honestly, one of the considerations that came out of the last collective bargaining agreement was moving from 2 staff members on vacation off at a time to 3. It was part of the MOU that was signed, which creates more vacancies. With that understanding was the hope that we would need a minimum of 4 contributing part-time personnel to help fill those empty slots, to help preclude burnout from our full-time staff having to work overtime or coverage. Obviously, we're below that number. And so our full-time staff has been meeting the need. They've been coming in and working the shift and ensuring that we are maintaining not only a minimum manning of 3 dispatchers on duty at a time, but keeping a high level of excellence in that dispatching moving forward. However, that does get tiresome. The quandary I honestly face is that it's a difficult role to fill a part-time position within our organization, because the demands for training are very intensive at the start. We need them a minimum of 24 hours a week, up to 36 hours a week during that training period for up to 12 to 17 weeks, depending on how much time they can give us. For someone who's working a full-time job elsewhere and is considering this as a side activity, they're not congruent. You know, so you're left with young people who haven't really defined what they want for a career yet and want to test the waters, or looking for somebody who has experience in this job, who's looking to settle back in to maybe a few shifts a month to fill out during retirement. That's a tough niche to crack and to get people who are committed and dependable at the level that we require.
True, true. Well, it sounds like you may be searching for 3 part-time individuals to help our cause here. So that may be a bit of a challenge in the COVID world, but maybe not too. There might be some hungry people out there. So if any of our groups have any good suggestions, I'm sure Rhodey would be happy to take note of that. So please give him a call or an email and let him know if there's anybody you guys can think of that might fit into a part-time position for the COG. Any final questions about personnel, or is everybody pretty satisfied with the status we are right now? Okay. We'll jump back then to the finance report, because I do see Master Doherty there now. Yes, we did miss your presence there, Mr. Andre.
Thank you. Sorry, Joel had to give me a heads up. I was busy actually updating spreadsheets for our 2021 appropriate budget, so I was knee deep in that. I apologize, and thank you, Joel, Captain Montgomery, for reminding me. So let's go right in. So financials through July 31st, 2021. For the month, we had operating receipts of $173,000, and the reason that appears a little higher than normal is because, again, of timing. For example, at the beginning of the month, we received May's payment from Ashton, and then a little later in the month, we received June. So there was 2 payments there. We had June Orville and Kidron payments, and then we also had at the last day of the month, Worcester paid July. So that's why that's a little high for the month. Operating disbursements, you'll see, are just under 108,000. So we had a positive change in our cash or net position of 65,000. The other thing I would comment on is we did have, I think, about a $30,000 payment for our Motorola bill there. That's why operating expenses for the month are up at that level. So for the year to date, though, you'll see things are pretty much evened out. We had brought in just under 160. We brought in just under $816,000 in operating receipts and spent just under $803,000 for a positive change in net position or change in cash of little over $13,000. When you add that to our cash at the beginning of the year of $157,000, we are at $170,561. You notice all the variances. We are about almost 5% under budget on the operating side, and about almost a little over 4.5% on the disbursement side. The big delta on the revenue side or receipt side would be our 911 funds. You'll see we haven't received those yet. So other than that, the budget is pretty much unremarkable, as they would say in the medical community, which is a good thing. Any questions that I could answer at this time?
Any questions of the group for our finance director? All right.
Move to approve, Wheeler.
Wheeler, Steve, did you have a question?
He was approving.
Oh, okay. Move to approve. All right. Thank you there, Mr. Wheeler. Is there a second? Second for approval of the financial report.
I'll second that.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Okay, moved and seconded. Any questions before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the financial report for the period ending July 31st, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, they are approved. All right, well then we are down to the miscellaneous portion of the agenda. First off, before we dive into what Rhodey has, is there any concerns or questions of our respective members? Everything moving in the right direction as far as everyone's concerned as in our dispatch world? Any issues out there anybody would like to bring forward?
I have a concern that Mayor Miller is not wearing a tie today.
I do too. I noticed that myself. It's the first time I really paid attention to it until I saw the picture on the screen and thought, I can't believe Joe Montgomery's seeing me without a tie. And even the police chief in Worcester has a tie on.
There you go. Hey,
Not only that, a crisp white shirt.
that's right. We aim to please around here. Well,
But thank you for noticing. And I was in Orville on Friday to see the Redwood Estates or the Redwood Apartments. And Mayor
the apartment.
The city looks wonderful. And I was there to meet Wayne Schleybaugh because he is preparing to build 45 new homes here in Ashland. So he was showing me some of his handiwork.
Oh,
that's great.
yeah.
Good for you guys. We're trying to push that issue here in Worcester also. We can definitely use a few more homes here. So
yes,
if you have any good advice on that, please pass it along. All right.
Right.
I was just telling somebody here the other day that really I'm so pleased with the way this whole dispatch group is operating. I mean, we truly are at sort of the pinnacle right now of things seem to be running so smoothly, and it's doing exactly what we had intended it to perform as a dispatch group. And man, it may have taken a few years to get here, but I think we've reached it. I think I know myself, I'm very happy with the way we are having our safety services handled and dispatched, and the protocol that we're under as far as how we do that dispatching. So congratulations to all. I'm so pleased to be able to say that finally, that I think we are here.
Chief David Marcelli was telling me in advance of the meeting about the new tool that's being investigated to be able to offer video live from the sites. And boy, I will say that if we get that into place, I mean, we definitely have a distinguishing asset or benefit here at Warcog that would not be available at other dispatch centers in our area.
Well,
currently,
that is a perfect segue to back to Rhodey, because I know you've been very anxious to talk to us about that. So thank you, Mayor Miller, for that segue, and Rhodey, take the reins.
Okay, thank you, sir. As I stated earlier, much of this first year that I've been here has been about being reactive. We finally made that move to stabilization, and I'm proud to say that now we're at a point where we can start looking towards the future about how we can better feed our agency's needs, look at new tools that help us do our job more effectively and efficiently. And what I'm bringing to the Warcog for a demo right now is a tool that I believe will do so. The software is called 911i. It was developed by the British military for their surveillance and reconnaissance missions, and was shared with their public safety services about 6 years ago. Their public safety services have been using it as an effective tool to help dispatchers gather more information than what can be provided by a caller. Simply put, many callers are in an anxious or anxiety-ridden state when they call in, which doesn't always lend itself to being the best provider of information. For very long, dispatchers have had a veil of basically a veil between them and the caller's actions as far as understanding what's happening. And this tool removes that veil. It takes us from just auditory information gathering to visual as well. And the way the tool works is when we have a caller who has already relayed the pertinent information to us so that we can start to assign resources, the dispatcher then has the ability to send a text message to the caller's smartphone, working with both Android and Apple products. And when they activate that text message, it allows their camera and GPS locations to be turned on. So now we can see what the caller sees. It also gives us pinpoint locations for the actual caller. Right now with our next gen 911 systems, we have the nearest cell phone and an approximate location, given a radius of which that person may be in. With this technology, we have pinpoint accurate GPS, which shows us within plus or 5 meters where that individual is. So it helps us with locating as well. The real key to this information, though, is that that live streaming video can then be shared with our agency responders. So they'll have an opportunity to see what's going on before they arrive, so that will help with their situational awareness and or their size up of the scene prior to arrival to ensure that they have adequate resources and a confidence level in their understanding of what's transpiring before arrival, which helps them with their efficiency of response. So very exciting tool. This week, we're rolling it out to our ops board members. So I've invited everyone to come to the Warcog and see from the dispatch perspective what we see. And then we have been, as part of that demonstration, using their officers in the field to stream what they see, have it come into our dispatch center, and then I'm sharing that with the chief's phones. So they could see how they could monitor that activity from a remote location without having to be there. So I believe it has incredible value as a dispatch center for us to have an information source that doesn't rely strictly on the caller's ability to convey information. We now have our ability to look at it visually and pull in information to share with our officers. In addition, because we have made ProQA and our emergency medical dispatching such an integral part of the service that we offer, this gives us the ability to have a way to ensure that we can help with medical instructions by visualizing the patient, ensuring that the actions and instructions we're giving the caller are actually being followed appropriately. And then if there's any resultant change in the patient prior to our EMS arrival. So huge implications from the EMD side for us. From the law enforcement side, it offers a much more in-depth look at everything from protection order violations. If we have someone who is locked in a room and someone who's not supposed to be there banging on the door, it helps document that, whereas before it was just hearsay. MVAs, we can look and see how many cars are involved, the extent of the damage, what's the traffic flow like in the area that they're around. So do we have responder safety issues? A much more in-depth look. From the fire side, if we have someone who is reporting a structure fire, no longer do we have to rely on, hey, there's a fire here, hurry up and get somebody on the way. We can now see the type of house it is, where the fire may be located at, the color of the smoke. And we can pass that information on to the cell phones of the responding assistant chiefs or chief on call so they can see that information as well. So has a lot of potential for us. Now, all of that doesn't come without some liability. And that liability is covered in that all of the video and still pictures that are captured by this system are saved in an online cloud database that is CJIS certified. So that is the certifying group for the FBI and for the continuity of this information. It's saved there for 30 days and it's available for download. So once it gets to the cloud, we can pull it down and include it as part of our record keeping and our reports. The metadata, which logs every single instance that takes place during that event, from the invitation being sent, accepted, the GPS coordinates every 10 seconds, any text messages that are sent back and forth, all of that gets logged. That's available for 90 days. And at the end of the one-time session, the link is basically deactivated, and then a second text message is sent with a unique ID receipt that is used for linking that event to the CAD call request for court purposes. So it's a system that's been in place in England for over 6 years. They're rolling it out here to the United States through a partnership with the Critical Response Group in October. We were fortunate to get a heads up. Worcester Fire reached out to me with an email saying that they had received this, and I said, "That's funny, I'm looking at the same thing." I got one as well. We got in on an early demo opportunity. We're one of 4 agencies in the country right now who have either accepted this and have it in place or are demoing it at this time. So with that, that's a general overview. Your ops board members are seeing that this week. I did an informal push onto Chief Anderson while they were having their live burn day, just so I could see how it worked. And it gave him a little insight into the process. And I've had Orville PD and Orville Fire here as well. So if you have questions of me or perhaps our ops chiefs who have seen it would like to answer some, the floor belongs to you.
Any comments out of the guys that have gotten a chance to view this and have participated in one of these sessions?
Just a short bit we did. It is pretty amazing. It's real life. I was able to watch one of our guys walk around the house. He played the 911 caller. I had the live feed on my phone, and there was hardly any, if any, lag whatsoever. A very clear picture. I think for the price, obviously it's a no-brainer. I don't think there's anything that would stand in the road of going forward with this. Like Rody said, we're one of 4 in the country to be able to just try this out. I think that's a huge feather in our cap, and Rody and Chief Saley for getting it and getting the information out.
That's great. Thank you, Rick.
Great idea.
From the Orville
Is there
side,
any, and I'm,
well, we yesterday we utilized our school resource officer. Unbeknownst to him, we blindsided him with it. We called him up and said, "Hey, we're going to send you a text message. Click on it," and it opened up his phone. And I'm just pointing that out, how easy it was. He had no idea we were going to do this. And when we sent it to him, he was able to click on that, and the video came back to us in Worcester at the COG. And I'll just echo what Chief Anderson said. It was pretty amazing. And then the director was able to show us on a map, as our school resource officer was just walking around the school. You were able to see his movements tracked on an overhead map. So that was really impressive. And kudos to Chief Saley and the director for pushing this innovation. It's just one more thing that we do uniquely at our dispatch center with when you add in Tango Tango and you add in all of these different technologies that we've instituted, it just increases the value of the service we provide.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chief Burkbeck. Good words there. So.
Rody, Captain Lay, and/or I will be in sometime before the end of the week to look at that, but it looks very promising, and thank you so much for looking into that.
Absolutely, Chief.
Great. Now, your agenda has something about a demo, or are you going? Do you have something you were going to demo here for us today, Rody, or is that for each group to come and see it up at the dispatch center?
That's the second is correct, sir. Yeah, just that we're having our ops board members in to demonstrate the program for them so that they are familiar with it before we actually start using it within the dispatch center. My anticipation is once we have completed our trial period, I'd like to, get the opinion of the ops board if they feel that it's been a value added tool that we would want to consider adding to the services that we offer through the COG.
Okay.
Now that said, there are other competitors that do have products that are similar. Another one is provided by Equiture, who provides our recording services So any phone call, any radio traffic that comes in, we have Equitr's recorder that takes all that in, holds it, stores it, and allows us to recover that. They are also working on a program called Insight that has live streaming capabilities. So I have committed to them that we would bring that in and try that as well. But based on what I have seen, it's in its infant stages as far as development. It's able to give live streaming video and GPS coordinates, but that's it right now. It doesn't record any of it. It's not shareable. You know, they are still developing the program, and perhaps someday it may be to the point where it's equitable with 911i. But we're going to give it a shot anyways, just so we can say that we gave it an honest review.
Sounds like a good plan. All right. Any final questions on this new potential tool to use in the dispatch center?
And I don't know if this would even qualify, but is this something that if we pull together some of our CARES Act money, we can pay for? Or that might be a real far-fetched idea because it's more of a maintenance fee, isn't it? A $7,000 a year maintenance fee.
Yeah, it's basically a licensing fee for access to the program. You know, if your finance directors would like to put their heads together and determine if that would be an appropriate allocation for the CARES Act money, you know, that's certainly their decision. But as an independent governmental agency, the Warcog, we don't have access to the CARES Act money right now. We chose to go with the COVID FEMA funding, which we have been through the final process, and it's just been hanging there for the last 2 months. So last time I checked in with them, if we see a reimbursement or a revenue come back from that FEMA money, it'll be right around $6,800, which would ironically cover the cost of that for the first year minus the startup fee. But they also said, don't anticipate a decision being anytime soon. Speaking with Joe Montgomery yesterday, the floods that we had last July that they were approved for FEMA funding for are still waiting reimbursement. So the federal government's not in any hurry to show us any fiscal love right now.
Well, and now that I think about that for a little bit, actually, I don't know that that would be a good use because we've got it in our budget here at Warcog, so maybe that's not a good idea. So I scratch that.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I would tie it to the COVID either.
Yeah, I think it might be a stretch to tie it into COVID, at least from the that I've seen come through.
It wouldn't be tied to COVID. Once we receive the funds, you know, those funds go back into basically our general fund. So we've already expended expenses that were above and beyond what we anticipated for our COVID period that we tried to be attentive to. So those funds would be coming back to us. How we chose to spend those then as part of our general budget would be up to us. And right now we're trending below our budgeted amounts for the year by about 5%. So if we keep to that model, then that would be money that would just be welcomed in excess.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right.
With that, sir, yeah, the only thing I have left is moving with the state of Ohio in that they have transitioned to having schools opened. We kind of set that as our benchmark for reopening our agency. So as of yesterday, our agency is open again to agency personnel with pertinent business. So if any of our stakeholder agencies, police or fire, need to come to the COG, we simply ask that you come with a mask. Use some hand sand when you enter. We'll temperature screen you, sign you in, and then we can conduct the business as necessary. So I appreciate everybody's patience. I know it's been hard to organize and communicate, and especially when there's paperwork involved, to get all that transferred while we've been locked down. But I am very conservative by nature, and I appreciate our staff relenting to some of my requests and making good personal choices as well, that we've all stayed healthy throughout this. But we welcome you back with open arms, even if they are conditional on your mask attire.
All right. Thank you, Rhodey. Appreciate that. Well, that concludes any business that was on our agenda. Or is there anything left amongst our group that people would like to share or to get feedback on? All right. Well, we did it in less than an hour, folks. That's a pretty good meeting as far as I'm concerned on stuff. So we got a lot accomplished. Our next meeting is in 2 months, I believe. We're on the bi-month schedule, so it'll be sometime in October, the 4th Tuesday of October at 2 o'clock. And unless there is some pertinent businesses, has to have a meeting between now and then. So with that, then, if there's nothing else, would someone like to move our adjournment? Okay, I see Chief Saley put his hand up, moving to adjourn. Second is Rick Anderson. So all in favor of calling our meeting to a close, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And anybody who wants to hang on here for a while. I didn't think I'd have any takers on that one. So, all right, crew. Thank you all. Good stuff happening in our worlds. So keep the rubber on the road and the shiny side up, huh?
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.